Danielle Bigby, welcome. I want to get really in there with you because our producer Laura Lucetti introduced me to your work, and I have fallen deeply, madly, obsessively in love with you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
I'm so good. So can you introduce yourself to the audience and let us know who you are, what the Pivot Queen is, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, who am I today?
Yeah, who are you today?
Today I'm a mom. I have a 5-year-old daughter. I live in Miami and I'm a life and business coach. I mentor self-made CEOs, women in transition, creatives, entrepreneurs, actors, music video directors, all sorts of people. And I am now creating a product-based business, a functional mushroom line. I'm very passionate. Yeah, I'm super passionate about functional mushrooms. And
what are functional mushrooms?
Functional mushrooms are medicinal mushrooms such as reishi, lion's mane. They're non-psychoactive.
Okay.
And they're adaptogenic, and they heal your body in so many ways. They prevent disease, inflammation. They're amazing. I'm obsessed.
Did you see Fantastic Fungi on Netflix? I feel like you probably did. You're in the business.
Of course I did. And I was definitely microdosing.
Oh, as am I right now.
Great.
Yeah.
But, as am I.
Oh, I'm so glad to be riding this wave with you.
Yeah.
But those are not like the ones that you're selling. How do they? Are they teas? What are they?
So we're creating a bunch of different products, but right now what we're working on is a coffee replacement because it was really healing during postpartum depression. So functional mushrooms are non-psychoactive, like I said, so they'll be in everything from pancakes to coffee replacement, all different kinds of products we're working on.
Amazing. That's so amazing.
Thanks. We're in the very baby stages. Mm-hmm. A product-based business is a beast.
Is it?
Let me tell you. Yeah, I'm on a big learning curve, but I'm here for it. That's why I call myself the Pivot Queen, because I'm ready to change at any time, and it's really super fucking uncomfortable. Sorry. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
You're more than welcome to curse. Part of the reason why I was so excited about having you on is because you're so fully embodied. Everything about you. I mean, from what I see through your marketing, that could be a different story completely, but wow, it's so palpable. And if cursing is part of your MO, let's bring it,
I'm going to just take that in right here to feel fully embodied, because that is truly something that the last 2 years that I've worked on personally is to feel integrated and whole and really at peace with exactly who I am. So I will soak all that in. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It makes me so happy that comes through in my marketing even.
It really comes through. Yeah, it feels so authentic. Integrated is such a great word because, just as Laura was introducing the two of us, and she knows that both of us are really passionate about psychedelics and psychedelic healing and motherhood. I think part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because it does feel fully integrated. It's like we know that, even you introducing the concept in this conversation, it's been 5 minutes, just that it helped in postpartum depression. You're not in it, for sure that it was a successful experience for you. And even I, as just a bystander, I'm like, wow, that is an embodied woman. That is a woman who is reaching for her pleasure and then oozing it out of every pore.
Yes.
How yummy and delicious for the rest of us, including your child, I'm sure.
Yeah. I could tear up already. What are we, 4 minutes in?
Yeah, it's been a good 4 minutes.
It's been a great 4 minutes. Yeah, you have me emotional over here.
What makes you emotional?
Well, when you said for my daughter, because it's been such an important, it's been so hard as a mom to choose myself every step of the way, because you really have to deny people's needs at the same time.
Yeah.
But you know what you're doing is essential to pour into yourself and to feel whole and to be able to give back to your partner and to your child and to your community and to your clients. And so to separate yourself for a moment and choose yourself when it is so complex as a mother to do so, to get over the mom guilt and the shame that other people might think, or your fear of what other people might think, and to really choose yourself is such a complex thing, but it's such a pleasure. And I tell my daughter, even at 4.5, 3, 2, I've always told her, Mommy's going to take care of herself right now. I'm going to go to a girls' dinner. I'm going to go out. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do these things because I'm going to be a better mom for you. And not only that, I want to be an example of you choosing yourself, because I'm going to require that of you as a woman. And that's what is required of you as a woman in this world.
Oh my gosh. So much is coming up for me around, like, you know, first of all, the reflection that is needed, I think, in community. Like, we need another woman to hold up a mirror and say, thank you for choosing yourself. Thank you on behalf of all of us for choosing yourself and your juiciness and your special spark, because it's inviting me to do the same. And that is a gift for my children. That's a gift for my community. It's part of the reason why this podcast exists, is because we need community as women, so that we can reflect these truths back at each other. That in fact, just like you said, telling your daughter, I'm going to go take care of myself, and I will require that of you, to take care of yourself. That, like, hopefully you don't need to do any of this unlearning, because I do think, like, I don't know if you have this experience, but like, the idea that somehow it's a betrayal to choose myself or nourish myself, it's somehow taking away from other people, that feels like a learned experience. That doesn't feel like truth with a capital T.
Yeah. How interesting. It's my mom's birthday.
Happy birthday.
And I'm going to pick her up at the airport after this podcast recording. And it's interesting because it's not only a societal learning, but it's often learned directly from our own parents and our grandmothers and our aunts and the women in our lives who represent those people. And I would consider my mom the Medusa, the keeper of all secrets, and the selfless woman. And she's just now at, 50 something years old, really stepping into who she wants to be as a person. And, she didn't know any better. She was 22 years old when she had me, and it was the 80s. So she was doing the best she could. But yeah, not only have I had to unlearn so much that society implies and imposes upon us, but also my own mother wound, and really resolve that with my mom as becoming a mom.
Do you resolve that in the relational field, or just in your own sort of process?
I had to first resolve it within myself, because it came out as, this is such a big topic, because it came out as really an anger and a resentment towards my mom.
Right.
And it's actually, I think, what caused a lot of my drive. My dad is very driven. He's very masculine. And I always perceived him as being stronger.
Right.
And more of something that I wanted to follow after, although we have our own issues. But I perceived her as very weak. And so a lot of it was this rebelliousness within me, trying to... I didn't embrace my femininity. I didn't embrace my womanhood. I didn't embrace my fragility and my sensitivity for a really long time. I would say up until this past year. And, but healing the resentment towards my mom for not choosing herself actually allowed me to have more conversations with her and empower her and tell her I loved her and remind her how special she is in my life.
Yeah.
Because I was withholding that and I never would want that for my own daughter. You know, it's so painful when our little ones reject us. Imagine like a lifetime of resentment from your adult child. And so it was this huge full circle moment. And my daughter's turning 5. So she's like, I don't want another hug, mommy. Stop telling me you love me. That's not cool.
It's so
I'm like,
painful.
oh my God. I
It's
sent my
so
mom
painful.
flowers the other day for no reason.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
My son is 5, and he very much preferred, I think it's changing now, but he very much preferred my husband for a long time, and I like took that really personally. Like, it rocked me. It killed me. And I have like a little one, and I was like, it's cause we had a baby too soon, all the things I messed up. And honestly, a lot of it is totally developmentally appropriate. Around this time, like around the 5s, there's something called the Oedipal phase. Do you know that myth? Where like
No.
Oedipus marries his mother and kills his father. That, like, the influx of sex hormones sort of comes in around age 5-ish. And so what a child would do is say, I want to marry this parent, and I want to kill this one. Of course, it feels that dramatic, and it's not at all a sexual experience, but it's normal. It's normal to want a little bit of distance and some intense closeness. And I just took it so personally, partially because I have very similar mother wounds. And what's interesting is, like, my mother did everything for me, everything, and totally, betrayed her own needs in that process out of love. And actually, in my very first psychedelic experience, it was a really beautiful sound bath experience. I had this realization that the most painful part of my childhood was that I had so much love to give my parents, and there was no receptacle for it, because they were busy, because they were wounded themselves, because whatever was going on. In that journey, I really found that my pleasure matters. It matters so much, because it creates a container for my children's love for me. It can't
so
land.
beautifully put.
It can't land when I'm sick, or when I'm tired, or when I'm resentful of them, even secretly, right? Like, there are no secrets really in this motherhood experience. Like, so I really, really relate. Of course, that'll lead to postpartum depression, which we haven't actually covered in this podcast yet, which I'm just so thrilled to be honoring with you. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little backstory. So Gabe and I have been together about 10 years, and he owns bars and restaurants. When we met, he was just opening his first bar called Broken Shaker. It's a pretty infamous bar in Miami, New York, and LA, Chicago now. But it was just a pop-up at the time. And so we were dating at the most inconvenient time of his life, and he was super non-committal. He didn't trust me. I didn't trust him. And we had a really insane, rocky relationship for like a good 3.5 years. And we finally got to this place where we were so obsessed with each other. We didn't want to break up because we didn't want anybody else to be with each other. But like, we also would fight every single day. It was extremely toxic. So we went to a conscious uncoupling coach, and I was like, listen, if you can help fix us, great. And if we are not fixable, then just help us untangle this emotional obsession with each other. I'm completely ambivalent to the outcome. I don't care. I'm not attached. I just don't want to live like this anymore. And it was actually my first lesson in non-attachment. And we did 6 months of therapy together. We literally, it was kind of like a 12-step program where it was just like, don't drink today. It was just like, don't fight today. And we had like code words and like funny nicknames for each other. He literally like renamed me in his phone as Marta, which is this like code word for like the demon within me, the shadow self.
Nice.
And he was like Marta with like devil emojis. And like we finally got over like that crazy tumultuous part, and I think we hadn't been fighting for maybe like 3 or 4 months of total.
One day at a time.
And literally one day at a time, like the next best step, one day at a time. Don't fight. And then finally, like within that 6 months, I got pregnant.
Wow.
And I already said to him before, we'd been together so long at this point, I knew him really well. I knew he'd be a great dad. And I was like, you know, we're having this child if I get pregnant. And so I got pregnant. We had just moved to LA from Miami. I've lived here now going on 15 years. At the time, it was like 12 or something. He lived here for most of his life from Colombia. And so it was like this big move out to LA. I was a yoga teacher. I had worked at all the big studios here, managed them, and I was so excited to move to LA to start this yoga teacher career. I wanted to be like on the Wanderlust tour and like famous yoga teacher traveling all over the world. And like, here was my like, this like moment had arrived. And then I found out I was pregnant. And I didn't feel the confidence to go out and teach in this big city and like new space. So I was at this turning point of what should I do? But simultaneously, we went there to open Broken Shaker, and it was supposed to open 2 months later. It didn't open until the day I gave birth.
Oh, wow.
Literally the week I gave birth, he was not open. He was not at his restaurant and bar, and he had 3 outlets on that property, and he was supposed to be there working his ass off, obviously. And instead, he was home with me for the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
And the reason I shared
could have gone a different way.
Totally. There's many directions that all of that could have gone.
Yeah. I mean, I'm, you know, there are a lot of men who would have just gone straight to work, you know, but you had done all that work together.
Yeah. And what's really remarkable about not having his job open for those 9 months, that he wasn't really working. He would just go into the construction space, check on it once a week, and have his conference calls. So we spent those 9 months really bonding. It was like a 9-month extended baby moon. We had neither one of us, never not worked in our entire lives since the age of 15 on. Like, we were hustlers in the hospitality and the wellness business. And it was this beautiful moment of decompression before our whole life changed. And so I wasn't working. I hadn't built a career when I had my daughter. I hadn't like reestablished. And so that was a lot of the frustration when I had her. There was nothing to go back to. And I feel like there's so many women like that who leave. They know it's like the end of their time in corporate or the end of the time in their job. And when they leave, they plan on just taking 6 months off or so. And it's like, there's just nothing to return to. So hence the pivot queen, but like, we're masters of creators. We're born to create. Like, that is our essential being, all humans, but women in particular.
Yeah.
And so I trusted that. And so there's more to that story, but
I want to hear it. And I want to know about how postpartum depression came in and then ended up being a teacher of sorts to you.
Yeah, it was a hard, beautiful teacher. So the next phase after that, after they opened Broken Shaker, was to move to New York and open the next Broken Shaker. So we were on this like tour. We were living between Miami, New York, and LA. Samaya was about 3 months old, so a new baby. I'm in a new phase of my life, being a mom without a career, without a community, without friends on a daily basis. I'm in New York City. On top of it, we're foodies, so we're like eating bagels and black seed and like
Black seed, that's my
matchas.
best friend.
No way. Oh, we
Yeah.
love Black Seed. They're amazing.
Oh my gosh. Shout out to Ray and Noah of Black
That's
Seed
awesome.
Bagels.
Yeah. We're big fans.
Yay.
So I was eating bagel sandwiches as often as possible. There was no bounce back for me, no snap back. I was totally out of routine. Being a yoga teacher, I think that I ate croissant. I got away with eating croissants and like pastries all the time because I was teaching and sweating and working out and 28. And now I'm 32 and living in New York, living a very stagnant life and I didn't have the self-motivation to practice on the floor of that nasty studio New York apartment or even like the like I couldn't get over the hurdle to like make time for myself either.
Oh, so
I'm
many
so
of us feel that way.
tired.
Yeah.
I was so tired.
It's real, like the hormonal shift, the sleep deprivation, and also like, you know, for those of us who are coming into it with a mother wound of any sort, some are from the opposite, you know, end of the spectrum, but overgiving, undergiving, whatever it is, if you come to motherhood with stuff, it's already
we all
physically,
come to motherhood with stuff.
Of course.
We all come. And the crazy part about motherhood is like when you're, especially your first kid, you read every damn book. You watch every video. You Google all the stuff. And you obsess over preparing like your labor and your birth plan. And you ask friends, you know, maybe modern day women, we ask friends, what are the gory details? Like, what can I expect? Like, even if you go that far, you know?
Yeah, you listen to this podcast
you listen to this podcast.
Yeah, to try and figure it out.
To try to get like some atmospheric understanding of it. But there's nothing like what happens in that first 3 to 6 months and then repeats every 3 to 6 months for at least 4.5 years on my experience. Because when they say like your transition from like labor to like having your child is going to be a reflection of like what postpartum is like. And so like your pregnancy is like no indicator of like what your birth is like. You can have like a really beautiful pregnancy and like a really tumultuous, complex birth process, labor process. But they say that your labor process is going to be the way that you behave and you respond is the way that you will respond to postpartum and to becoming a mother and like where the shadow work lies. And so my labor was all natural. I wanted to do it the hard way, completely free of any drugs, completely free of assistance. I did it with just a midwife and in water. It was totally filmed, by the way, for Jared Leto's music video. We can talk about that at another time or get back to that. He had like these camera guys all up in there.
Wow.
And it was almost 20 hours of labor. Wow. I avoided the pain. The midwife would sit me on the birth ball and she'd say, rock on the birth ball during your contractions. Sit into it. Lean into the pain. And she would turn her back and I would jump up. And I was just avoiding. Like, I wanted to do it the hard way, but I didn't actually want to walk through it. I wanted to do it. I mean, it hurt, but like also like there's this, you got to lean in, you know, like you have to lean into those contractions and you have to lean into that trauma and that discomfort and look at the shadow. And like, I wasn't willing to really do it. Like I wanted the badge of doing it, but I wasn't really doing the work. And that was exactly what postpartum was like for me. It was, I wanted to be this healed mother, but I hadn't actually forgiven my mother. So how can I be whole and heal and integrated when I was holding on to so much anger and resentment?
Wait, I need to pause.
And father.
I just need to pause and hold my heart on that. Can you repeat that for me?
How could I be a whole, healed mother if I hadn't healed my own mother wound and if I hadn't forgiven my own mother and my own father and really pushed through and leaned into my own traumas, you know? So to top all that off, we're living in these variables where I don't have very much community. I am living for the next bite of hipster food, the next coffee, the next matcha. I'm just like going restaurant to restaurant all day long with Gabe. That's all I remember about New York. It was like hot, sweaty summer eating food and no routine. New York's the best. Like it wasn't the healthiest. Let's just say that. Yeah. I think we all know that. Yeah. And so I was gaining weight. I also revisited my binge eating disorder, bulimia, because I couldn't bear, I was just gaining, and I didn't want to do the work. The bulimia was also part of the trauma. I was so angry at my parents. I was a missionaries kid. They're pastors. And I lived on 7 acres when I was 13, and I was homeschooled for the first time ever at 13 and put on this 7-acre farm thing.
You're so extroverted. I can't imagine you just like on a farm.
Can you imagine? That was the trauma. That was the trauma.
It's been exactly 29 minutes and I'm like, that bitch can't be on a farm being homeschooled. No.
That's why self-expression and pivoting and all these things are so important to me, because it's like my core being of who I am.
You're so urban.
West Virginia, honey. It was awful.
What?
Wheeling, West Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
Can I pause and just say that, there are probably people listening who hear you say, I didn't want to do the work, and might relate and might be inspired by that to do the work. And that there might also be the woman who is dealing with, postpartum issues and bulimia. And I just want to say, like, there is a reason why the psyche is not ready yet to do the work. And I want to honor that, Danielle. It's minute 30 of me knowing you. But there was a reason why you weren't ready. And there's nothing like a little being in your care to inspire readiness. And there are so many people, even with a child, even with a yoga certification and like deep conscious loving, who just aren't ready yet. And I just want to honor that it takes what it takes when it takes, and I
totally.
And I'm glad for all of us. Like I said in the beginning of our conversation, I'm so glad you chose yourself. For the rest of us, I'm so glad. And I'm so glad you are, got to the other side of it, and you were willing to do the work and sit in the contractions of life and of trauma.
The contractions of life.
And
thank you. And
it's not easy. And I just wanna like love on whatever part of you and anyone else who just is not ready.
Yeah, and I think that also there's so many layers of healing, right? Healing is not linear. Healing is cylindrical, it's spherical, and it's more like a swirl moving upward, where the rings get tighter and tighter, or they loosen and loosen, where they become less, the pattern becomes less often, right? And so the spiral up where it becomes really tight is like, it's that constant patterning, And I was in a moment of constant patterning, but the truth is that before, when I thought I had healed, I had really just made my way around one circle, And so, it went up for a moment for me to see how deep that trauma went and how much those wounds really needed some tending. And so I'm really glad, like you're saying, like I wasn't ready. I wasn't emotionally ready. I wasn't even aware of what I needed healing on, to be honest.
For good reason. Sometimes we just hide these things away from ourselves because it is too painful.
It's too painful. And it's so part of our self-protection and our mechanisms are to hide that pain from ourselves and to pretend that everything was fine.
Right.
Because that's what you had to do as a child.
Right.
You had to get back up, pretend that it's fine, show face. Everyone thinks I'm so confident and that I've never been through anything, but that was just my mechanism of function. So, like I wasn't ready. I needed to tend to my wounds. I needed to see how deep they were.
Right.
I needed to find depth and meaning in them as a mom for myself,
Right.
to be able to get the courage to overcome those hurdles as well.
Yeah.
So that whole 6 months in New York was really wild. I even came out on Instagram and admitted I was bulimic with my best friend on an Instagram Live.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, it was a really powerful time. I knew that it was going to be part of the story, like a chapter in the book, you know? And the crazy part is like rewinding back to like what is healing and like what is doing the work. I like 8 years prior had been doing all these peyote and ayahuasca circles. I mean, like I'm talking, I've done over 120 plus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I literally was like listening to people sit in circles afterwards and do this integration work. And I was like, what are we healing? Like I was so unaware that I had experienced trauma in my life at that time.
But Danielle, like, I think there's nothing like looking at a baby to realize, fuck, I was that fucking vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, I was that impressionable. I was that
And
sweet
pure.
and pure. And, you know, so much of my shielding is like acting cool. Acting like I don't care, aloofness, you know, babies have no sense of that. To see the rawness of a human being is to see yourself.
Yeah. And I think like children are they're just so honest and so sincere and so immediate. And to deny them of their need is like really complex, you know. It's really hard to do as a present, you know, halfway present, even sober person, we'll just say it like that. It's hard to deny the kids' needs. And so to imagine somebody denying you of your needs, you know, reflecting on your own childhood, almost heightened the anger for a long time.
Of course.
So there was like the first, I think, 6 to 12 months, really into like the pandemic, where I was just like so angry, so rebellious. I was going to break the chains of my lineage.
Right.
And I had this like attitude about it. Like I was going to be like the buck stops here.
Right.
And pardon my cat.
I love the cat.
I had no idea she was in here. She really likes these chords. Get out of here. So I had this like resentment driving me, and I had to really, I you know, another thing is like when your resentment drives you, who are you without your resentment?
Did you do the 12 steps in OA? No.
I've never done 12 steps.
Yeah, because
No.
I have, not for bulimia, but for like compulsive overeating. I just sort of like kept it in. Maybe sometimes I've over exercised or laxatives or whatever, but but it was definitely an eating disorder. I did the 12 steps, and resentment is like the thing that that they work on. You know, that the 12 steps work on, because that's what's eating us up alive. I thought maybe you had you know, read that or worked on it in some capacity, but I guess it's just a universal truth. I think
it's a universal truth. And also my therapist, she's an NA and 12 steps therapist as well. So she's in Al-Anon and all of that. So I think that there's a lot of that integrated into the work I was doing with her.
Yeah. So with all this said, how did you get through it?
So I think I was terrified to revisit psychedelics, because as a mom, because you don't want to let yourself go. You don't want to not be present. You can't. Also, my previous psychedelic experiences really in ceremony had been through ayahuasca and peyote, and there was 12-hour sessions.
Right.
So I was afraid to do it. But Gabe had already started his journey into psychedelics, which was new for him. And my postpartum depression got so bad towards the end of the pandemic that we were in a pandemic also. And
How old was she? How far out from birth were you?
She was at 3.5.
Right. It's a long time to
And
suffer.
so it was a long time.
Yeah.
And so I like to say it was like a layer of like there was just always a fog, and sometimes it would thin, but it was always there. And so one day I just said to him, I was like, I think I'm going to have to go on medication because I'm having more bad days than good.
Right.
And
no shame in that. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. And I didn't want to not because of the stigma around it, because I just didn't want to be dependent on something personally.
Yep.
And I knew that if I didn't find my footing for myself, that it was going to be a different life. I could feel myself slipping away in my relationship and even as a mom. And I know that the medications could balance things out, but I just knew that I was going to be different if I didn't change directions. And I felt like I was on the floor of my kitchen, reaching up to the cupboard out of the dark, grabbing this jar of microdoses. He had all these different samples, and I popped one in my mouth. I came to my computer. I looked out the window of my office, and I was like, how am I so sad? I live in fucking paradise. I have a beautiful home, an amazing life, and I can't find any gratitude for it. And I was doing all the mantras and doing the gratitude practice and doing the yoga a few times a week. Like, how can I be so sad? This is awful. And so that day I sat down to work. I tried for 15 minutes for like the 100th time to get my to-do list done. And the microdose kicked in and I looked outside and I was like, fuck this. And I shut my computer. I went outside and I stood in my pool with my jeans on pulled up, and I was just like grounding into the water and, looking around and getting vitamin D and sun. And, I came back to my office and worked. The next day I was in my office for about 10 minutes. The next day, 5. The next day I didn't go to my office, and I did go to the office for the rest of the summer. I got a membership at the Standard, and I did horseback riding.
Good.
And I took the clients that I had and I let them taper off. And I knew that there was something else coming.
That is so fucking brave.
Thank you. It was wild. So I did 21 days of microdoses, and I did a protocol, 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off.
I do 4 days
5 days
on,
on, 2 days off.
Yeah,
I mean, I vary it all the time.
Oh, now
how do you like that? Yeah.
4 days on, 3 days off. I think as my brain is healing, she's telling me I don't need it as often. And it hits me really deep. Like yesterday, I took a microdose and I was heaving, sobbing about, a loss of a friend who overdosed, in my therapy session, which I probably couldn't access if I hadn't had that microdose. But, I don't need it as often as I once did.
Isn't it amazing how intuitive they are?
Yeah.
The mushrooms are called adaptogens for a reason. And if you've seen Fantastic Fungi, you've seen the really beautiful illustration of the mycelium network, which is the roots underground in the system, and how it communicates so intuitively. And so you think of mushrooms, especially psychedelics, as an adaptogen for the mind and the brain and the heart and the emotions and the soul experience. And they're going to first of all, they're an amplifier. So anybody who's listening, know that they're just not a cure-all. You don't pop this pill and everything flatlines and becomes peaceful.
No.
You amplify first what is there, kind of like that spiral, so you can see what is tightly wound. And you have to lean into those emotions. It makes you very emotional. Some people cry, some people laugh, some people do experience anxiety when they microdose. And so you have to make sure you have the proper tools and you're in the right headspace, because 21 days, the first 21 days was a total roller coaster. I was like, there was some days I was so productive, and the next day I'd be so tired because I would need to integrate everything that I just like literal fears and forgiveness that I had done. It was like a year's worth of list I would do on one day. And then the next day I would just need to like rest and integrate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day I would be like really present with my daughter, but then I would need to like pull back the next day and like have alone time.
Yeah.
And so,
Which is totally okay.
yeah, which is totally okay. But it was such a roller coaster. It wasn't a cure all.
Yeah.
So I did 2 21-day protocols, and I got halfway through the second protocol. And I think I was like day 10 in. And like you said, it just was like, I could tell my body didn't want it. It was almost going to give me more anxiety to take it than it was going to give me peace. And so now I just take them intuitively. I pop one probably like, I take capsules, ground up capsules, probably twice a month, 3 times a month.
Yeah.
Half the recommended amount. I take like 0.1.
Wow.
And so they really are amazing, and they reconnect parts of the synapses that are broken. I literally feel like who I was when I was 17 years old. I feel like who I was sometimes at 28. I feel like who I was as a new mom, like in the happiest moments, you know, like where I'm just like touching my daughter's hand and like rubbing it against my face, and I can feel that little babiness that I miss so much, but I actually miss it versus like before I was like, so glad that chapter's over.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really been a dynamic journey.
You know, you called them adaptogens, which they are. And I also am realizing that they allow, it's that adaptation energy that allows for pivoting. Right? Like there's no way for us to be flexible when we're, as you say, so tightly wound, when the nervous system is just so full of resentment and anger. And I don't say this in a judgmental way at all. There are good reasons to be resentful and angry. I honor that. And if we don't deal with them, if we don't really burn up all that anger until we see, oof, what was that? It was a baby crying and not getting her needs met. It was, you know, whatever else, not having a role model, whatever the pain was. If we don't loosen that grip around the nervous system, it's impossible for us to pivot, for us to see opportunity, right? And I think that's so important for mothers, particularly the ones reaching out to you, who are looking to find fulfillment in this new being. Can you speak to, you know, the new mother and the new person that comes out of the new mother experience?
Yeah, becoming a new mother is really one on a fantastic journey of discovery. That's the best way I can say it. And just being really, it's curious. It's a word we use in wellness and yoga a lot. Curiosity, you know, being open and curious to your new identity and to your new role, because you're going to be constantly shape-shifting. And, you know, I always said this with entrepreneurs, like, you got to keep your head in the game and be ready to go at any time. And also simultaneously resting and simultaneously problem solving. And so it's like mindset, playing, emotion, and playing. Yes. It's like, it's all these things. And so motherhood is like that. It's like this constant battle of it's not really a battle, but it's like a constant juggle of making sure, you know, stuff doesn't drop, but also being okay with stuff dropping. Like, it's going to fall, it's going to be messy. And so just being curious of who you can become and what it's asking of you to heal for your children, what it's asking of you to heal for yourself, and what it's asking of you to heal for your family and your ancestors in the past. Because we're here to not only heal for ourselves, but 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And so we are not here on this journey alone. We're not just here with our family units. We're not just here with our soul family. We're here with a universal consciousness that extends so far beyond what we're even fathomable of understanding. And so it's going to be such a ripple effect when you can get curious and really allow yourself to let go of your identity and be non-attached to who you used to be and who you think you are.
Mic drop. Where can we find you for more wisdom, for more mm, juiciness keeps coming up to me. I don't know, like fun. I find your persona and your personality online to be so yummy. Just
Thank
like
you.
so fun and yummy and as I said embodied. Where can we find more of you and that and whatever else is on tap for Danielle Bigby?
Thank you. So, at Danielle Bigby on Instagram, that's where I hang out most of the time. My stories are like, a reality show. You can see like what's happening in my world. It's usually me pointing the camera at everything insane and amazing in my life and motherhood and the simple things in life. And I'm launching a podcast soon. We're going to be sister podcasters.
Yes.
My podcast is going to be called Rebellious Reinvention. That'll be out soon. We're working on production. And at DanielleBigby.com. Stay tuned, though, for Super Mood. That's SOOPER, mood. Super Mood. It's superfoods for all your moods, functional fungi and friends. That will be launching soon within the next year, I'd say. And yeah, just I think right now this next chapter for me is all about inspiring people and really being the most embodied woman, as you said, so that I can share that with the world. I'm not selling anything right now. I'm just really here to inspire people.
I really feel that. I really feel that. Thank you so much for inspiring us today. I can't wait to listen to
Thank you for having
Oh, it's
me.
my pleasure. I can't wait to listen to your podcast on the Hoff Studios platform. It's a joy to know you and Laura Lucetti, man. You really know how to pick 'em.